الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلي وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى أهله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. The open sanctioning of grave worship in Fadhaa'il A'maal, teachings of shirk, reading in Fadhaa'il Hajj. Enam. Zakaria Kandalvi has presented a cocktail of Aqidah in Fadhaa'il Hajj. He borrowed from the Ash'a'ira, shifting to Rafida, then moving to Sufiya with traces of Qadiyaniyya, and finally ending with Hinduism, and protecting his sought with Allah from all these phases of kufr. Enam. Aywa, phases of kufr. Kandalvi start with making ta'wil of the attribute of the descending of Allah in the man of the Ash'aris. He writes on page 15, Fadhaa'il Hajj, volume 2. I can't read this language, yani their language, yani. But here the authors even provided, yani, the evidence with their own language, yani. I think it is Pakistan or India. Allahu Alam. The issue of Allah being near or descending or any such type of narrations that are mentioned, its knowledge is only with Allah. He is always near, but the apparent meaning that the majority of the scholars have taken is that it is the special mercy of Allah. Allahu Musta'an. Which scholar from Al-Sunnah and upon the manhaj of the Salaf say this? It's only with the conformity with the Rajh Ash'ari that they make figurative interpretation of what they refuse to understand of the sifat of Allah the Most High. And blessed, they not stick to the basic principles regarding the attribute of Allah and argue about what is forbidden. And why has not the statement of the righteous Salaf or quoted on the issue of the descent of Allah the Mighty and Majestic? Are they lost in history, or did Kandalavi chose not to quote them, bringing out the aqidah of the Rajh Ash'ari? Those who make ta'wil and attribute meanings to the words of Allah that they themselves have devised, then they are lying upon Allah, as they do not know whether Allah intended that meaning they devised or not. And the way of the Salaf was to accept the attribute with their meanings, but negate their likeness to those of the creation. Imam Abu Hasan ibn Suraj, known as Shafi the second, and he was a competitor of Al-Ash'ari, said, we not speak with the ta'wil interpretation of the Mu'tazila, the Ash'aris, the Jahmiyyah, the opposite, the Anthropomorphists, Mujassima, and Mushabbiha, the Karramiyya, and those who declare Allah to be like his creation, Mukafiya, those asking about the modality of his attribute. Rather, we accept them the text about Allah's attribute without interpretation ta'wil, and we have believe in them without declaring any likeness with the creation. Tamthil, Ijma'ul Juyush al-Islamiyya, page 62. It will be beneficial to know the statement of our Salaf regarding this matter, their consensus. Al-Walid bin Musin died in 194 Hijriya, rahimahullah, said, I asked Malik al-Awza'i, Layd bin Sa'id, and Sufyan al-Thawri, rahimahullah, concerning the reports related about the attributes. So they all said, leave them as they are, without asking how. Rated by Al-Ajuri in Sharia, page 314, Al-Bayhaqi in Asma wa Sifat, page 443, and also in Itiqad, page 118, and the chain of narrators is Asal. Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal died 241 Hijriya, rahimahullah, said, these ahadith should be left as they are. We affirm them and will not make any similitude for them. This is what has been agreed upon by the scholars. Related by Ibn Jawzi in Manaqibul Imam Ahmad, page 155-156. Imam at-Tirmidhi died 279. Rahimullah said, it has been stated by more than one person from amongst the people of knowledge about such hadith that there is no tashbih, resemblance into the attributes of Allah and our Lord. They bless the Most High, descend to the lowest heaven every night. So they say, affirm these narrations, have faith, iman in them, not deny them, no ask how. The likes of this has been narrated from Malik ibn Anas, Sufyan al-Thawri, Ibn Uyayna, and Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak, who all said about such a hadith, leave them as they are, without asking how. Such is the statement of the people of knowledge from Ahlul-Sunnah wal Jama'ah. However, the Jahmiyyah oppose these narrations, and say this a tashbih. However, Allah the Most High, as mentioned in various places in this book, the attribute of al-yad, hand, as-sama, hearing, and al-hear, and al-basar, sight. But the Jahmiyyah make ta'wil of this ayat, explaining them in a way other than how it is explained by people of knowledge. They say, indeed, Allah did not create Adam with his own hand. They say that hand means that power of Allah. Sunanut Tirmidhi, 3/2/24. And the narration are numerous. For further reading, refer to articles on Troid Organization and Salafist Publications.com, Coming back to our topic of grave worship, Kandalavi said 80 years ago in very explicit words in the virtues and benefit of grave worship, in the benefit of grave worship of grave worship, not just the grave of the Prophet ﷺ, but the grave of anybody. But the sanctioning required the prerequisite of leveling the virtue and honor on the graves of the awliya in general prophet in particular. So the fabrication matches of the Yobandi go into over time and come up to the following. Fadhaa'il Hajj page 138. When you see the green dome, then it should be with awe and reverence, and you should take care of honor of the huzur, and reflect that in that pure dome is he who is the best of creation, the leader of the prophet, and virtuous the angels, The place of the holy grave that is superior than any other place, and that place which touches the holy body of the huzur is superior to the Kaaba, superior to the arsh, superior to the kurs, in fact superior than everything in the heavens and earth. Did the Kandala believe anything in his extreme and false exaggeration of the grave of the prophet? He did not even spare the arsh and kursi of Allah the Most High. Indeed, the Allah and his Messenger ﷺ are free from what they say. Now that the Kandalavi established the merit of the grave, the only thing that remains was to worship there and make pilgrimage to the grave of the Prophet ﷺ. But the poor and ignorant mass of the subcontinent and also will not waste their life savings on a lifeless prophet. Now, when the Ummah of Muhammad leave the narrations separately, and revelation is placed upon them, the people want a prophet who is alive. So enter the Sheikh Al-Hafid Kandalawi and his books. On page 144, Fadhaa'il Hajj, Allama Kastalani write in Muwahib that you should represent yourself the Prophet proper conduct. That was due to him in his lifetime because the Prophet is alive in his grave. What kind of heresy is this? The Prophet ﷺ alive in his grave? Are we to believe Kandalawi and conclude that the Sahaba of the Messenger ﷺ buried him alive? Was that heroic speech of Abu Bakr, may Allah be pleased with him? May I just when he Abu Bakr, may Allah pleased with him, said that whoever worships Muhammad, then Muhammad is dead, and was a figure of his speech and mockery. And Kandalawi wants us to believe in an Aqidah, the Madkhari, opposite to that of the noble Sahaba, Allah the mighty and majestic said in the Quran, meaning of which, and we granted not to any human being immortality before you, O Muhammad. Then if you die, will they live forever? Everyone is going to test death, and we shall make a trial of you with evil and with good, and to us you will be returned. And verily, O Muhammad will die, and verily they too will die. Ainam. The Prophet are alive in their graves, but this is the life of the Barzakh that we do not know about. The hands of the Prophets do not come out of their graves; they cannot be us. They cannot rescue us from harm. Or any other nonsense that Fadhaa'il A'maal calls in this regard. But this is not the end to open preaching of grave worship. Furthermore, a complete manual is prescribed in explicit detail on how to present yourself the grave of our wali. On page 141, Fadhaa'il A'maal, Fadhaa'il Hajj, volume 2. When you visit anyone's grave, you should proceed from the direction of the feet, because if Allah has given you the dead, if Allah has given the dead the power of kashf, then it is easy for him to see you, because when the dead turns to his right in his grave, then his sight falls towards your feet. And when anyone approaches the grave from the head side of the dead, then the dead has trouble of difficulty in seeing you. Astaghfirullah, what kind of aqidah is this? If you are to believe in Kandalavi, then will it be permissible to bury a wali alive? The only example of burying alive we know that is that of the Arabs at the time of ignorance, and today this practice is still found alive in Fadhaa'il A'maal. And how many brothers who are in Jama'atul Tabligh have buried their loved ones alive? And for that matter, it is Kandalavi alive in his grave. There is not a single authentic narration found in any reliable books that said of any wali being alive in his grave and looking at the visitors of his tomb. And Kalabi, who was given very lofty titles such as Know of Allah, Pivot of the World, and Sheikh al-Hadith, did not even know the audacity of such a secret, or was it that he did not care? And the question of the Tabligh Jamaat, so far what Kandalavi has sought to prove is the high merit and value of visiting graves, and that the Prophet ﷺ and the awliya are alive in their graves, and they see and listen to the visitor. The objectives of the school of Deobandi and Kandalavi will not be complete until they chat the unsuspecting ummah into grave worship completely, and this will require worshipping and supplicating at the graves. The Prophet ﷺ and the noble Salaf have always opposed this heresy. There was no option left but to lie, and they did, and lie they did. They lied on the Sahaba and the Messenger and recalled them to satisfy their lust for shirk, and Allah's curse be upon the liars. So Kandai fabricated on page 176-177 Fadhaa'il Hajj. Hadrat Aisha said that when my father Hadrat Abu Bakr was ill, he willed that after his death his body should be taken to the grave of the Prophet ﷺ, and should be said that يعني that here is Abu Bakr and he wishes to be buried next to you. If you receive permission from there, then bury me there, and if not, then bury me in Baqi. Therefore, after the death of Abu Bakr, and according to his funeral procession was taken towards the grave of the Prophet ﷺ, and a funeral was sought. Then he heard a voice from inside, and there was no speaker in it inside. The voice said, "Send him in with honor and dignity." Hadrat Ali said that when the time of death approached Hadrat Abu Bakr, he called me to his side and said, wish me with the hands which you wash the Prophet, and apply on me perfume, and take me to his room and ask for his permission. If upon asking his permission the doors of the room open, then bury me there, and if not, then bury me in common graveyard of the Muslims. Hadrat Ali said that after the preparations of the funeral, I was the first one to step forward and ask the Prophet that Abu Bakr wants your permission to be buried here. I then saw that the doors of the room where the Prophet is buried flung open, and a voice said, "Send the friend to the friend. Let all Muslims know that the above is a lie and is not found in any authentic collections of hadith. Rather, such an enormous lie and can only come from Tablighi Jama'ah, who are rightfully called the Sufis of the era by the Muhammad al-Albani, died 1420 Hijriya. Kandalabi has not even spared the most noblest of the Sahaba and ascribed all self-shirk to them. He warned the Muslim to believe that even the companions held the Aqidah that the Messenger of Allah listened to us from his grave, and far removed are the noble companions, may Allah be with all of them. Kandalabi only wants to sanction his filthy and perverse Aqidah of grave leaking, and to do that he abused and lied on the companions, a great crime indeed. There are 100 of other instances of grave worship. Fadhaa'il Hajj should be called Fadhaa'il Qubur wal Shirk wal Ibadah. Allahumma sallim sallim. But there are other points of false aqidah that are to be exposed. We shall inshallah mention them in brief so that the reader can be warned from such lies and disown himself from the Tablighi Jamaat forever. Number 1. Sufi prays at the Prophet's grave and is given all his previous and future sins. 2. And is forgiven all of his previous and future sins. To all the Prophet Salaf and the Awliya use the wasila of the Messenger of Allah in this application. 3. The Aqidah of Awliya worship. The belief of hero worship is totally from the pagans and shaitan first deceived the Ummah of Adam by causing them into making images of righteous people, remembering them in their gatherings, and later worshipping them. The pagan Romans used to worship their empires, the magicians their kings. Hindus still worship heroes and heroines of their medical folklore, and also worshipping their private part. So Kandalabi, not finding the worship of Allah sufficient, create peers in his books. Would not even have a name, and to them he gives the attribute of Allah. But this will again require some fadail or virtues to be labeled on such awliya. They had to be so miraculous, so awesome, and so noble that even the Prophet of Allah are humble before them. They must possess the attributes so noble and so high which belong to Allah alone. Their station must also be superior to the Prophet and angels and their companions. In short, they must be so awesome, so stupendous that they demand unrestricted love and friendly worship. And with the no hesitation, with this is what we found in Fadhaa'il A'maal. Fadhaa'il Hajj, page 164, Fadhaa'il A'maal, volume 1. One person asked Khidr that, "Have you ever seen any wali who is better than you?" Khidr replied, "Yes, I have once visited the mosque of the Prophet. I saw Imam Abdul Razzaq Muhaddith, and he was teaching hadith. The crowd and I listened to the hadith from him. In one corner of the masjid there was a youngster sitting who had kept his head between his knees away from the crowd. I said, 'Do you not see that a hadith of the Prophet are being taught? Why don't you also attend the circle?' He neither lifted his head nor did he look at me, and said, 'In that place are those who listen to a hadith from the slave of Razzaq, and here are those who listen to a hadith from the Razzaq.' Hadrat Khidr said that, 'If you are indeed speaking the truth, then tell who am I?' He raised his head and said that, 'If I am not mistaken, then you are Khidr.' Hadrat Khidr then said, 'From this I come to know that there are such wali of Allah who even I cannot recognize.' Allahu Akbar, the peer, I think, or the peer, Allahu Alam, Allahu Musta'an, yeah. The peer, yani, please notice that he has no name, no history, and no background whatsoever. Just wily imaginations of Tablighi Jamaat. In the above fable did not even raise his head and answer the questions of Khidr, and he listened to the hadith from Allah. the revelation comes down upon him. If Mirza Ghulam Khadini makes such a claim, all the scholars of Deobandi label him a kafir, but what about the kufr that is in their own books? To this peer is attributed the knowledge of the unseen and kalam with Allah. He has been raised to the status of Musa, and even more, he has been portrayed superior to Khidr alayhi salam. Khidr, to whom Musa alayhi salam himself was sent by Allah the Most High to seek knowledge. To a Salafi who follows the Aqidah and understanding of the Sahaba, the above passage is just a pathetic laughable lie, but to the ignorant Tabliki, such wali demands utmost respect, honor and reverence. But the poor Muslim who is being received by the Tabliki Jamaat does not even realize that such a wali never existed except in the imagination of the Sufis of Deobandi. Ainam, Aywa, and brought to life in Fadhaa'il A'maal. But this was not enough to draw the ignorant Muslim into worshipping the creation. The elite of the Tablighi Jamaat needed some more spice to make the awliya all more colorful. So the complete and absolute and independent knowledge of ghaib is attributed to the peers of Fadhaa'il A'maal. Allah Musta'an. On page 241, Fadhil Hajj Kandalavi writes, Hadrat Abu Sa'id al-Khazzaz said, I once visited the masjid of Al-Haram and saw Al-Fakir. He had two old and tattered pieces of cloth on his body and was begging the people. I thought in my head that such are the ones who become a burden on the people. He looked at me and recited the ayat. Know that Allah knows what is in your heart. So beware. Abu Sa'id then said that I repented upon the evil thought that had arisen in my heart. The Kafir then called out to me and recited, He is the one who accepts the repentance of his slaves and forgives all sins. What is being said here is that this peer knows all the dots that arise in a person's heart. He has a share in the knowledge of the unseen. In very clear terms, the Aqid of the Shia, the Qadiani, and the Hindu is being propagated. Very Allah the Most High has said in the Quran, meaning of which, and with him Allah are the keys of the gate. All that is hidden, none knows about them but he. Ainam, say none in the heavens and the earth knows the ghaib unseen except Allah, nor can they perceive when they shall be resurrected. Say Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I have no power of a benefit or hurt myself except Allah wills. If I had the knowledge of the ghaib unseen, I shall have secured myself an abundance of wealth, and no evil should have touched me. I am but warner and a bringer of glad tidings unto people who believe. But the last lie, the one remaining fabrication that will confirm the lordship of the awliya of Jamaat Tabligh, is that they should be free from any whatever. They should also be free and independent of Allah Himself. May the curse of Allah, the All-Powerful, be on the liars. So on page 290, Fadhaa'il A'maal, Imam Ghazali says that the third level of tawakkul, which is the most highest, is that a person remains such with Allah like a dead in the hands of his foot washer. He has no action of his own. He reaches on such a level that he is no longer required to ask anything from Allah. If you are to believe Kandari for a fraction of a second, then that will negate all the attributes of Allah the Most High. It will negate the attribute of Allah being all-knowing, because the awliya of the Tablighis also have a share in that. It will negate the attribute of Allah being the sustainer of the universe, because there are such individuals, according to Kandalavi, who sustain themselves and have no need of Allah. It will negate the attribute of Allah being the ever-living, because the peers of Fadhaa'il A'maal not die, as we will read later. It will draw us into the pit of absolute kufr that even the Arabs of Jahiliyyah did not reach. Even they believed that Allah was the creator and the sustainer. As such, Aqidah has murdered millions of the Muslims, and hundreds of Muslims and hundreds of millions of Muslims are being deceived. It will drive a Muslim of what he values the most is pure Tawheed. Such is the price of cooperating and joining hands with the Tablighi Jamaat. Stage or stand. The Messenger of Allah ﷺ was sent to take out mankind from the worship of false gods and to worship Allah alone, to take out man from worshipping the creation, to take out man from worshipping man. But Kanravi and all Jamaat Tabligh takes a person from worshipping Allah and makes him worship the dead. Peers. May Allah the All-Powerful hasten the destruction of Tablighi Jamaat. Naam. Ameen ya Allah. For the deadliest in Deobandi. أيوة. الله أكبر. Deadliest in Deobandi. Number 4. The Hindu belief of karma and the Buddhist belief of mukti are quite the same. It means when a man dies, he does not die. That is, he is instantly reborn in another form. These circles will continue until he orders enough good deeds to get himself freed from the bad of the bad ribad. For so a man can be donkey in one life and a king in the next, or a brick in the next, or a woman in the other. But the main point is that there is no afterlife, no munkar nakir, no day of judgment, and no hellfire or paradise. In a layman's words, death is not dying; it's reliving. This is only a brief version of such medical pagans. But the Tablighi Jamaat has been propagating such beliefs to the as suspecting Muslim for the last 80 years. But the fabulous Sufis of India, under the influence of the centuries of Hinduism and Buddhism, came up with some very interesting yet pagan beliefs. And for the first time in the history of Sufism, in the subcontinent, these naked beggars who performed all sorts of depraved acts with animals and young boys in the public preach their fantasies under the use of Sunnah. Today, their unholy alliance with the Shaitan is known to all Muslims as the Jamaat Tabligh. Before we proceed, we should remind ourselves about death and what Allah the Most High has said the meaning of which, and we granted not to any human being immortality before you, O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Then if you die, will they live forever? Everyone is going to test death, and we shall make a trial of you with evil and with good, and to us you will be returned. Verily, O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam will die, and verily they too will die. Muhammad is no more than a messenger, and indeed many messengers have passed away before him. If he dies or is killed, will you turn back on your heels as the disbelievers? And he who turns back on his heels, not least harm will he do to Allah. Allah will give reward to those who are grateful. Kandalavi the Sheikh al-Hadith, wrote on page 22, 272, Fadhaa'il A'maal, Na'am, volume 1. Hadrat Abu Sa'id Khazaz said that I once went to Makkah Mukarrama and passed through the door of Bani Shabir. I saw the corpse of a young man who had a very beautiful face. I looked at his face carefully, to which he replied, Abu Sa'id, don't you know that lovers do not die? They remain alive, even though they appear to be dead. The dead takes them from one world to another. This was and is the belief of the elite of the Obandi. The pagan Egyptians had exactly the same beliefs, that their pharaohs do not die, but transfer from one world to another. Hence they used to mummify them and keep all important items in their caskets. 5,000 years later, the pagan belief is still being propagated in mass, but this is just the tip of the iceberg. On the dead list peers of Fadhaa'il A'maal, there are also such peers who even know when and where they are all going to die. On page 272, Fadhaa'il A'maal, volume 1, Sheikh Abu Ayyub Sanusi said, once a murid of mine approached me in Makkah and said, Ustad, I will die tomorrow at the time of Dhuhr. Take this gold coin and spend half on digging my grave and half on my shroud. On the next day, when the time of Dhuhr approached, he entered the masjid, performed the tawaf, and went to a nearby spot and died. When he was put into the grave, he opened his eyes. I asked that, is there a life after death? He replied, yes, I am alive, and every lover of Allah does not die. The Shia Aqidah, the Imams know when they will die, and they only die by their choice. Al-Kafir, book of the Shia, containing a hadith attributed to the Prophet, page 258. So every lover of Allah never dies. Then what is the difference between the murid and Allah? So every lover of Allah never dies. Then what is the difference between the murid and Allah? Allah is high and does not die, and the murid does not die. And furthermore, this murid also know when they die. Allahumma musta'an. Where is the Tabligh Jamaat taking the Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? The Imam of Ivo, Ibn Arabi, person with such beliefs, and said, the Lord is a slave, and the slave is a Lord. I only wish I knew which one was Mukallaf. As we read, investigate further into Fadhaa'il A'maal, not only are a time of undead under the exploitation of the peers of Sufia, but also the Kaaba comes to the rescue of certain damsels in distress in Fadhaa'il A'maal. Yes, Kandalavi did not even spare the house of Allah from insult and belittlement, and it is identically reported in Bukhari and Muslim from Abu Hurairah, may Allah be pleased with him, that Qatain from Ethiopia will destroy the Kaaba stone by stone. If the Kaaba cannot save itself from annihilation, then how can it grow hands and come to the rescue of women who walk around attracting attention by wearing ankles? On page 105, Fadhaa'il A'maal, volume 1, Musa bin Muhammad says that once in Ajmi, and an Arab person was performing the tawaf, was a good and religious man. During the tawaf, the sound of the ankles of a beautiful woman fell on his ears. He began to stare at the woman. From the Yemeni corner, a hand emerged, and the man, as a result of which his eyes came out, and from the wall of the house of Allah came a voice saying, "You make tawaf of our house and look at our men." This was in return for that look. If you repeat such behavior again, we will slap avenge you harder. Where was the hand of the Kaaba when the Sahaba of the when was the hand of the Kaaba when the Sahaba of the Messenger were being tortured? Where was the Kaaba when field and camel intestines were put on the back of the Messenger of Allah? Where did not the Kaaba grew 100 times and saved Ibn Zubair? Why not the Kaaba muted into an octopus and destroy every idol that the mushriks of the Makkah had kept therein? Or does the Kaaba comes on to rescue the women of Fadhaa'il A'maal? Has the mutation of the Kaaba stopped? Does it still continue today? Ainam. Allahumma musta'an. Such are the lies that come up from the fabrication of machines in the Obandi. Such as stupidity and corruption of Aqidah has caused the downfall of the Muslims. Believing in grave worship, hero worship, associating Qur'ans with the noble names and attributes of Allah, and caused the cow worshipping. Monkey supplicating Hindu to gain a salary over the Muslims in the subcontinent. And who is to blame for such filthy stupidity? The Jamaat Tabligh and their books. But this is not an end of the insult that the house of Allah, the house built by Ibrahim wasallam, had to face by the element of Jamaat Tabligh. Not only does the Kaaba grow sons, but sometimes it also pays the great awliya of Fadhaa'il A'maal greeting visit. Page 111, Fadhaa'il Hajj Fadhaa'il A'maal, volume 2. And it has been reported from certain bazaars that some people live in Khorasan, but are close to the ones who perform the tawaf, and yet there are some to whom the Kaaba itself goes to visit them. Astaghfirullah, why not the Kaaba visit the Messenger of Allah and the noble companions who lived in the exile for 10 years in Medina? Where was the Kaaba when the Sahaba were turned back empty-handed and prevented from performing Hajj? Why did not the Kaaba come to visit the greatest of the people? And Kandalavi wants us to believe that the Kaaba visits pathetic piers of Suzime. What just is this? Indeed, when Ummah of Muhammad left the narrations and the way of the companions, humiliation and stupidity is placed upon them. So much so, anyone calling to Tawhid is labeled a Wahhabi, anyone calling to detaching oneself from the deviation. The federal national parties Ahmad and the callers to shirk, bid'ah, grave worship, are given the titles of imams of guidance and Sheikh al-Hadith. What can be more stupid than this? For Jesus saves, and so do the peers in Fadhaa'il A'maal. Have you ever argued with the Christian and he will always end the talk with the term Jesus saves or Jesus died for us? The awliya portrayed in Fadhaa'il A'maal do similar things. Not that they will die for you. Are you kidding? Who will then reap the profit from the tombs and graves? But أيوة ولا يعني اللهم سلم سلم. But they will provide you with the heavenly factors, gush water out of nowhere, perform Hajj naked, and occasionally travel faster than the speed of light. Such are the greats of the Obandi, and the entire Tablighi Jamaat believes it. And scientists say that fish who have small brains. Aywa. This is page 232 Fadul Hajj. Hadrat Dun Noon Misri said, I saw a young man near the Kaaba. Sharif was performing much ruku and sujud. I asked him why was he praying so much. Sufis not pray, so it was strange for this prayer. He replied, I'm asking permission to return to my country. I then saw a piece of paper drop from the sky. It was written, from Allah the most majestic, the most merciful, to his thankful slave that return to your country. That return to your country, all your previous and future sins have been forgiven. Is this lie even worth a second thought? Who is this young man? Why is not such a great event recorded in any authentic book except Fadhaa'il A'maal and other books of Sufism? Is these facts present? Does such event paper or books drop out of the heaven still, or is it just another fabrication to prove that high station of fictitious peers? Every Muslim who values his Tawheed will know, adopt the shan and hate such evil teachings and label it to be label it so be from the conspiracy of the kuffar. But to our dismay, such evil is recorded with great pride in Fadhaa'il A'maal, perhaps the most widely read book in the Ummah today. أي نعم. The above lie reminds me of another liar who also claimed of paper and Allah. All the Muslims know that this lie is a Dajjal of the East, Mirza Ghulam Qadiani. The following stories are stark resemblance and further prove that the fabrication of Fadhaa'il A'maal are from Qadianiya and have nothing to do with the authentic Sunnah and Islam as well. The following passage is taken from the book Ahmadiyat of True Islam by Mirza Bashruddin. He, Ghulam Ahmad, saw in a dream that he had prepared a chart which related to some future events in his own life and in the lives of some friends, which he desired God to approve. He then saw God personified. He placed the chart before him for his signature. God signed the chart with red ink. Before signing, he flicked the surplus ink from the end of the pen with a movement of his hand. Some drop of ink thus flicked fell on the clothes of the promised Messiah. A reason of his love and graciousness of God in granting his request filled his eyes with tears, and with a slight spasm he woke up. A disciple of his, named Mian Abdullahi Signori, who was at that time massaging him, drew his attention to some wet drops of red on his clothes. The promised Messiah then related the kashf to him in detail. That is page 86. I ask every reader that to decide whether the Sunnah is being propagated or Qadiyaniyah. This is how the shaitan amongst the men and jinn deceive the people. Inshallah, future studies will expose the already dead and expose the Qadiani faith in the light of Quran and Sunnah. Aywa. 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 Future studies will expose the already dead and expose Qadiani faith in the light of Quran and Sunnah. But the point of mentioning the above heresy is to explain the similarities in the dreams and visions that both peers of Qadian and the Obandi experience. In both schools of stupidity, events that happen in dreams last after the dreams are over. Both claim to be divinely inspired and have something of alleged revelation within them. Tablighi Jamaat claims papers drop out of heaven with the words of Allah on them, and Qadianis claim that Allah Himself writes on papers. Can this be the work of the work of one devil? Allah knows best, and far above is Allah with what the last attribute to Him. The Most High will avenge His honor on He day when none will talk except to whom Allah allows. What belongs to with Allah belongs all glory and might. Coming back to Fadhaa'il A'maal and Tabligh Jamaat, there is a mention of such a noble peer who not only sets out for Hajj with nothing but performs it naked. I wonder how many brothers who are fueled by Jamaat Tabligh have performed the Hajj naked and then taken their families, wives and daughters in that state. My advice to them is that not only is it haram to run around the Kaaba with your aura exposed and being the imitation of the early pagan Arabs, but the Saudi authorities also have strict regulations about the attire during Hajj. Please, my brothers, the Sunnah explicitly clarifies the clothing one should wear during the Hajj, and it is certainly not being naked as being propagated for Fadhaa'il A'maal. Page 221, Fadhaa'il Hajj. Ainam. Hadrat Malik, after listening to his talk, offered him in his skutra, but he refused and said that it is better to stay naked than to wear the clothing of this world. You will have to answer for the halal things of this world and receive punishment for them for the haram. After that, he made a dua. O Allah, with sacrificing the udhiyah, your nearness is achieved. I do not have anything except by my life. I present it in your domain. Please accept it. After that, he uttered a scream and died. Then came a voice from the ghaib saying, "He is the friend of Allah." Malik said that the whole night I was thinking about him. I then saw him in my dream. I asked him, how are you judged? He said, like the martyrs of Badr. And even better, I asked how. He replied, they were martyred by the swords of the kuffar, and I by the sword of the love for the Mawla. This is the love Kandalavi and Jama'at Tabligh had for the peers. They loved them and adored them even more than the martyrs of Badr. And who is this peer? Nameless, deathless, clothless, suicidal, and insane. What was this voice from Ghaib? Are we to believe that Allah the Most High took a naked and suicidal Sufi for his friend? Why was there no voice heard for the matters of food? What kind of miracles are these that only happen to the elite Sufis and did not to the most notable companions? All of the prophets, their companions and scholars died or were murdered justly. Why was there no voice from the heavens? Why did not any paper or book drop from the sky and attest to their waliya? Or is this prestige preserved for the peers in Sophia only, who are more deserving of receiving such extraordinary and miraculous help? The Prophet or numberless and naked peers? Again, why Muslim brother and sister should reflect on the insanity and atheism being openly preached in Fadhaa'il A'maal, the extremism in adab, and we are finally led to worship. Tabligh Jamaat in reality have no love for the Messenger of Allah and his companions. They only love and adore the awliya, who are lost in history and are most often figures of imagination by the authors of their books. There are still other insults of the intellect that are to be found in Tabligh Nisab, better known as Fadhaa'il A'maal, officially banned in Saudi Arabia. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah al-famarra wallahi. Aywa. Such as number one, appear by the name of Musa the rear travels to 2,700 miles in part of a night to pray Fajr in Makkah. Even the F-16 Falcon cannot travel this fast. Page 233, Fadhaa'il Hajj. Two, Khidr feeds Baqila, a type of food, to a wandering Sufi in a jungle. 3. I'm worried who was أيوة نعم يعني we should say that Alhamdulillah يعني for the Ahlul Sunnah they are upon والله يعني we should say Alhamdulillah. 3. I'm worried who did not eat for 40 days, supplicate to Junaid Baghdadi in the jungle for water, and is granted his wish. And this is page 242, 243, Fadhaa'il Hajj, Fadhaa'il A'maal, volume 2. Such are the paganistic beliefs contained in Fadhaa'il A'maal. It has recited the Muslims in mass, murdered whole nations of Islam, have cast the evil cloud of shirk and grave worshipping over no less than 200 million Muslims worldwide. It has divided the heart of the Muslim and intent of guiding the Muslim to the Quran and pure Sunnah. It attaches them to some ignorant personality, making taqlid of him and taking him as an absolute authority in all affairs of life. This is the book Fadhaa'il A'maal, the book that another Hizb, Ihya at-Turat, and in particular the Urdu section in Kuwait openly claim it is a fine to take the good and leave the evil from it. Ainam, woe unto you the Ihya at-Turat. You gather the people under the false garb of the Sunnah, and your only aim is to swell your numbers. So you do not have any regard for Sunnah or Tawheed, but your only concern is the crowd. And it was the crowd that the callers of Ihya Turat feared. They feared that it will lessen their numbers if they spoke about against the Jamaat Tabligh. So they had lied and guided them to the worst manner of shirk, bid'ah and khurafat that has ever come upon the Ummah in the last 14,000 years. It has given the genitalia worshipping Hindu ascendancy over the Muslims. Fadhaa'il A'maal and the Tabligh Jamaat have stolen Tawheed and Sunnah from every home, replacing with stories and fables that resemble those of the Hindu scriptures, laden with shirk, bid'ah and khurafat. 100 versions of Islam exist today, some fueled by the Ikhwanul Muflisin, others by the likes of Hizbul Tahrir and Jama'atul Islami, and some by the likes of the Qardawi. The love of female singers and enticers and khutub. The common trait in all these diseases is that they are devoid of Tawheed, Sunnah, and the understanding of the Salaf. But they were the best, but the people have left them for something inferior. Just like the fornicators in hell will leave fatty taste meat for the rotten one. The Muslim Ummah has been given rotten, smelly personalities and books, and the pure Sunnah is hidden and suppressed. Why have we allowed the Tablighi Jamaat and their likes to fool us, to deceive us in the name of prayer and fasting? Why are they getting away by murdering and raping not less than 200 million Muslims worried of their Aqidah? It This is the greatest genocide ever perpetrated against the Ummah. The Tatar murdered and looted, but the Tablighi Jamaat murdered the Sunnah and steal our Tawheed. Is it this not a greater crime? Is it not better that a Muslim is murdered while he is upon to sound Aqidah than live for even 1 year with Jamaat Tabligh and commit the worst form of shirk ever unleashed? Why have we allowed them to play with our noble deen, removing what they feel and aiding what they feel? They also have stolen the children of the Muslim Ummah, stealing them from mosques and study circles, and dumping them like corpses into their Sufi khankas, stealing the ibadah of Allah alone, and giving them to worship man-made awliya. This is the time we wake up. We wake up to get back what was stolen from us. We get back to rid ourselves from the Tablighi Jamaat. Get rid of their shirk, their bidia and their stories. And I swear by Allah, the most worthy of praise, that the only way is through knowledge, through knowing what is shirk and what is tawheed, through knowing what is sunnah and what is bid'ah. This is the only way we will be able to save ourselves and our families from the fire, the fuel which is men and stones. The time is now to wake up and break the shackles of blind following of atheism and returning to the pure deen revealed by Allah, the Most High, to His Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and that which he preached to his noble companions. We seek help from Allah, for it is only Him, the Most Merciful, who can help us and rid us of our humiliation, and this can only be done by returning to the Salaf. And with this, we end the third part of the series. To Allah we belong, and to Him is our return. Wassalamu alaikum, the slave of Allah, Abu Muawiyah, morning of Dhul Qa'dah 11/1422 Hijriya, that's the day 24th of January 2002.